Again, we join our hearts and voices as we prepare to listen to the gospel of the Lord. Please stand.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark.
Glory to you, Lord.
A leper came to Jesus and, kneeling down, begged him and said, "If you wish, you can make me clean." And moved with pity, he stretched out his hand, he touched him, and he said to him, "I do will it. Be made clean." The leprosy left him immediately, and he was made clean. Then, warning him sternly, he dismissed him at once. He said to him, "See that you tell no one anything, but go and show yourself to the priest, and offer for your cleansing what Moses prescribed, and that will be proof for them." The man went away and began to publicize the whole matter, and he spread the report abroad, so that it was impossible for Jesus to enter a town openly. He remained outside in deserted places, and people kept coming to him from everywhere. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord. Well, I'm sure that probably everyone here has heard of the name of a priest named Father Damien, who was a missionary priest from Belgium back in, I think, the 18th century. And his mission, he went to work among the people who had the disease of leprosy on the Hawaiian island of Molokai so many years ago. We think of the Hawaiian Islands as places of paradise, and in some ways they are, but at least in those days, there was one island that was not a paradise. It was isolation for those who had that dreaded disease, that contagious disease that spread very rapidly. And he went there because no one else would work with them. They were separated from the people, and there was complete chaos, in a sense, on that particular island. And because of the publicity that garnered, the focus of the world became directed at that place and on that particular disease, and consequently, through a period of time and his efforts and so on, more and more help came, and medical help as well. And as it turned out, even though Father Damien contacted the disease himself, or contracted it, and died as one of the people who were ill, the others took up the cause, and so that today in our 21st century, it's no longer a threat to us, and that particular priest is honored for the sacrifice of his life for those who were ill. There's many, many references in the scriptures to that particular disease in the Old Testament and also in the New. It was a very major problem then, as you can imagine, when they didn't have the medical advances that we have today. The gospel gives just one encounter that Jesus had with a leper. Now, maybe there are other encounters as well, but we know that the man came to him and he said that he begged for help. And I think that word begged is an appropriate verb, because it's such a terrible disease that he was really pleading for some sort of help. Because not only was there physical suffering in any, serious physical disease, but especially in this one, there was an emotional one as well, and a spiritual one, I might add, that because you had to become isolated. There's nothing worse than being isolated, I think. Like, even in prisons, the worst penalty, short of capital punishment, is that solitary confinement, to isolate people from one person from the community. So as a consequence of getting that dreaded disease, the loss of family suddenly, and loss of home, loss of job, just about loss of everything. Now, the treatment for it seems rather harsh to us today, that they put them aside and just made them stay outside the village and so on. But it was necessary for the survival of the community, because if they didn't do something, then they all would have had it, like the proverbial, the rotten apple in the barrel, that one rotten apple, spoils the whole barrel. That would be a good analogy of what we're talking about here. But again, thanks to medical progress and science, we still have issues, but we're better off today than we were then. Today we have, various serious forms of cancer. We have, it seems every season now, the flu problem, as we have seriously in this particular year. So it's an ongoing battle, but we are confident we do, with proper resources and brain power and so on, we're making progress in all of those areas. But as we are concerned about our physical well-being, and we should also be concerned for our moral and spiritual well-being. And I think the term leprosy can be a good analogy or a metaphor in talking about, moral corruption next to physical, illness. There is such a thing as spiritual leprosy too, where people get contagious, get seriously ill through sin and weakness, and maybe spread it to other people as well, into the community. They can destroy individuals if the sin is really serious, and even societies. So, for instance, today we have all sorts of isms in our society. We have the illicit drug problems that are immense, I believe, in our society, causing our society to be going somewhat downhill, not in the right direction. But of course, that can all be reversed by good people like you and others gathering together and letting your light shine and your voices being heard. In brief, Jesus wants our hearts to be in the right place. And what's in our hearts comes out in the open in what we do and how we act. So what is really in our hearts that should be love for mankind and love for God is really more important than external appearances. And therefore we should try to avoid all kinds of harmful and evil and malicious thoughts because they do spread a kind of moral decay among our own families in a way, and our own communities as well. When I was much younger, first ordained in a parish in the south end of Albany, one of our assignments there was to go to a certain nursing home nearby, down outside the city of Albany, to minister to the people there who were there. And it had an awful name, by the way. It was called the Hospital for the Incurables. Now, when I go to a nursing home, eventually, I hope it isn't called something like that. I wish it would be like the Hospital of the Pines, or the Brook and the Mountains and so on, but they did give it that very plain and frightful name, and they weren't incurables really, but it was a nursing home, and they probably weren't going to leave there alive. But nevertheless, we would go there and say Mass and give communion to the people, and sometimes their confessions. I think the point I want to stress here is that nothing is incurable with God. Physical, mental, emotional, nothing is incurable with Jesus Christ. And as a leper begged Jesus for help, in these words, he said, "If you wish, Lord, you can make me clean." And just as Christ gave him this response, he gives it to you and I as well. He says, "I do will it, be made clean." So may we experience a very fruitful Lent, which is coming upon now, and let Lent be a holy season that we too can be cleansed of any areas in our life that lead to any kind of problems for ourselves and others. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.